Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Cyber Shadow. In the last part we finished off Chapter 3 and now we're into Chapter 4, the Reactor. Arguably one of the longer stages in the game. I think if it's not this is the longest, it's like the second or third longest. Because Chapter 5 and Chapter 8 are both relatively lengthy as well. So this is sort of the water level for the game. Despite there not being much water in it. You saw it a little bit last time, but thankfully in Cyber Shadow, water isn't a pit hazard, it's just something you swim in. You can't attack while you're in it, but you at least can swim. This does lead to something that's kind of annoying in the boss fight, but we'll talk about that in about 12 minutes-ish. Since she hasn't passed to the ethos, she must be trapped somewhere. This facility has structures that can alter the flow of essence. Maybe that's what keeps her hidden from us. So at the start of this chapter, what we need to do is actually head left and right in this section to press switches to activate the main door into the main portion of the chapter, which is where the meat of everything is. It's around now because of the amount of HP and SP you'll probably have. You want to be not conservative with what you're doing, but at least pay attention to what you're using, because it's very easy to just mash up in the attack button to use every bit of SP you have for shurikens, but you don't want to do that. It's also right now we actually start seeing a lot more enemies per stage. For instance, here we got these guys who always kind of remind me of an enemy from one of the Mega Man Zero games. I can't remember which one off the top of my head. They're made of two propellers, top and bottom, and a main casing. You can destroy the main casing to prevent them from firing out their main attack, but then they'll just slowly leak out projectiles. But if you take out both their propellers, they'll just fall down and crash to the ground. On top of that, you can just hit them enough to send them flying into a wall to also just be destroyed like that. With that said, they're definitely one of the more annoying enemy types in the game, if only because they can fire from really far off screen. I'm glad you finally reached this place. Trapped, watching over you, I've been waiting for so long I almost lost hope. Our trusted friend L-gion has been guiding you through your journey, helping us come together once more. He's lost his original body, yet his essence flows strong, just like yours. I'm captive on the bottom level of this facility. I can't wait to be reunited, but be careful. Losing you again would be too much. I'm not gonna let a little thing like being killed get in the way of my duty. I'll keep carrying out the Master's wishes, just like I always do. That includes keeping you alive, in some sense, anyway. I believe, by the way, you can actively attack L-gion, but I think you can't destroy them at any point in time? Unless I'm just straight up wrong, which, hey, that's happened before. Now, the main mechanic of this, despite being the water level, is actually electrification. There's going to be a lot of emitters sending out electric balls, then when they hit a specific type of floor, we'll electrify that, and you have to use that on top of the switches you can destroy to dodge electricity while waiting for the platforms you need to actually be usable as platforms to be usable. With that said, the tracks that the electricity follows to get to the floors to do this vary in length, so you need to be a little careful of them in that regard. This, I think, was the level where on my first playthrough I started dying a lot. This is definitely one of those games where on a first playthrough you're gonna die a lot more than any other playthrough, only because you'll know what to expect from boss patterns, especially. Though I think what killed me the most in a lot of cases was, as I brought up in, like, I think stage 2, rushing too much through hazards. And admittedly, that can be kind of a problem of frustration in games like this, and this game's not exactly immune to this. When you die multiple times on the way back to a place you died the first time, you start to get really good at the sections before where you died, but you also start rushing, meaning you're a lot more reckless and more likely to die on the way back all the same. And that happened a lot to me on the first playthrough of this. Not so much on this one, but I take myself a little differently when I'm playing against myself versus when I'm recording anyway. For now, though, we're coming up on, I think, one of the few, like, really underutilized mechanics in the game. I'll talk more about why as we go through, though, because we got some bodies to investigate. Assistant Hagan stayed behind, but I need to make sure no one goes in or out. Dr. Projan said the area must be sealed, so I'm using a cyber-encrypted lock on this gateway. A few cyber sentries should substitute for a firewall. So, we got some hacking in this game, loosely. I got so far only to be blocked by computers. I didn't pay much attention during cyberspace training, and I don't have an interface device handy. Time to brute force this thing. So at a very few points in the game, we actually enter a cyberspace-like state. Almost like Mega Man 03 and that one stage in 04, but not really. These are sort of very minor platforming puzzles with sentries in the way, where you need to hit a switch to open a door, and then hit the key card to open the door in the real world. This only comes up like 5 times or less throughout the game, and it feels really underutilized because it's got a really nice aesthetic going on in there. And it's not like any of them are really that taxing or over-designed. There's really only 2 that have any real difficulty, I find, and that's mostly just because of the amount of sentries they place in them. There are times in this game where you can tell the main developer probably had a few too many ideas and wanted to incorporate too many of them. If there's too many cooks spoils the broth, this is a case of too many dishes overworks the chef, kind of, I guess, in a way of speaking. And there's only really a few ideas where you can tell, like, if this wasn't here, they maybe could have spent more time refining this or that. The cyberspace is one of those in my eyes. It's a shame, too, because honestly, the game is really tightly designed, level design-wise, in my eyes, for 90% of it outside of those cases. Things that maybe could be ironed out in a sequel if they decide to make one down the line, but given how long this game took, I doubt they'll be doing that. If anything, if they do another game, it's probably going to be a relatively different genre. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. For now, we need to use a bunch of our abilities, the Airstrike, the Shuriken, and the Rising Fire to get this HP up. If you're low on SP, good luck. You need at least 1 there to throw the Shuriken, but you can, I think, still hit the block on top of the Rising Fire if you don't have SP. And I've already mentioned that you can do the Airstrike, no problem without it. Also, I really like that enemy type there, the little jellyfish guys that spread the electricity from one of them to another. That's a good way to incorporate the electricity mechanic from the floors while also making it an active threat from the enemies. Plus, it allows me to do stuff like that, and I always love it whenever I can do the airstrike like that multiple times in a row. If anything, I think they needed more times where you can do that, but at that point, you're basically making the messengers jumping chains or DuckTales-y kind of stuff, and it can be a pretty derivative if you do that too much. Can you tell why this is where I started dying a lot on my first playthrough? Because they start placing a lot more enemies in tighter spaces on top of a lot more spikes. Though I do like that with these rotating hazards, you can at least take out the enemies. There's actually a couple of cases in this game where enemies that would just be straight up level hazards in other games are actually enemies here that can be killed. You just need to figure out the way to actually damage them, usually by targeting a central core first or taking the time to slash at them instead of just trying to go past them. Like I said, patience is sometimes the name of the game in this game in particular. This chapter is also sort of where the problem I brought up, I think, like last part, 2 parts ago, can start to creep up, where they start to put a lot of level between checkpoints, and that means if you die, the deaths are even more punishing. It's not the worst case of that. I think one of the worst cases of that is in chapters, it's chapter 7 or chapter 8, I can't remember which off the top of my head. But this is where it can kind of start to creep up here towards the end of this electrification section. My father, Dr. Projan, he's captured or killed almost everyone in our clan. He said it was for my sake. Now he's abandoned me and continued his rampage. Why did he leave me here? It's a good question, Master. And no, I don't think we ever learned her actual name. It's just the Master. Could have been nice if you had like a cutscene at least implying what her name was via, like, now that we know Dr. Projan's her father, him talking about his wife's favorite flower or something like that, but at the end of the day, it's probably not the most needed. This game clearly cares about its story, but it's very weird in how it tells it sometimes, if that makes any sense. Like, they jump around in the flashbacks, kind of all over the place in the chronology, and it leads to some interesting reveals for information, but it also makes you just wonder what the hell is going on for a lot of it. I don't think I fully understood some of the parts of this game's background until, like, playthrough 2 or 3. And this, I believe, is playthrough 4? I guess technically 4 and 5, because I do a practice run of every level before I record it. I didn't used to do a lot of practice playthroughs for stuff here on YouTube, but nowadays I do them relatively regularly, especially if it's a game I don't know like the back of my hand. Plus, if it helps me find things I could miss along the way, it's all the more helpful. I think the only genre I don't really do quote-unquote test playthroughs for directly are probably RPGs, but that's because I do a lot of research for those beforehand to remember how things work, what enemies might be weak to, and all that jazz. It's a very different mentality. I don't know why, out of the entire soundtrack, for some reason I hear this one and I get reminded of Mega Man Battle Network, and I can't exactly tell why, besides maybe the background beat matching some of the ones from, like, BN2 or something. I don't know, the way my mind works with music and how it recognizes what's kind of weird. Oh, well, that's a new obstacle. We can't get past that, so time to head to the right towards, one of the more annoying bosses in the game in the first playthrough, honestly. And, easily, probably the worst achievement in the game, too. We got a new item here. This is the Charge Blaster. You sit around for a second and it charges up to 3 levels that get slowly larger projectiles, and you can fire it by slashing, giving you a long-range option that's not exactly just your shuriken. And it's pretty useful for activating these water platforms from a distance. In fact, if you're trying to do the achievement, you're gonna really want one of these. Because the boss here is the Mekadragon. This thing's gonna bounce up and down amongst the water, eventually coming up on either side of you to do one of 2 attacks. Either an electric breath attack that fires downwards at an angle like that, or it'll send electric pulses down through its body to electrify all of the water. Otherwise, it'll just swim about trying to destroy the platforms you're on and damage you that way. When it's doing either of the breath attacks, getting directly beneath it and using the rising fire is the best way to do a lot of damage very quickly. But if you need to take a moment to just attack some platforms to get some SP to do that, feel free to, because there's plenty of platforms, they spawn infinitely. I want to say there might be an attack I can do if you're in the water near it, but don't quote me on that. What is really annoying about this fight, though, are the platforms themselves, because they're a part of the achievement for this fight. The achievement is to beat this fight without touching the water once. But because the platforms are random, as are the movements of the boss generally, it's really hard to do. It's the main reason I have not gone after defeats in this game, unlike Shovel Knight's main campaign. It's real bad, and if I recall the Completionists video on this game correctly from about the time this game released, I think he said that was the worst achievement in the game overall. But yeah, that sounds right, that sounds right. Notably though, whenever the Mekadragon does one of its main 2 attacks, it does dive back into the water at a downward angle, so if you're directly below it, you will get hit at that point. So try to hug off to the opposite side of its face when it's doing one of its attacks so you don't get dragged into that. And I don't know why, between the music and the design of that thing, I was always reminded of Ferris from Metroid Fusion. Which, hey, that's 2 Metroid reminders in 2 parts, basically. And here we have another statue. I guess it's time for us to meditate again. Alrighty. Welcome back to the Ethos. What do people have to say this time around? Earth, water, and fire. That's 3 elementals, right? What happened to the 4th? The dragon said the 4th one was supposed to return soon. I just don't see that happening. Do you? I guess all that's left is to rely on the dragon's wisdom. Some little mythology. The purpose of our clan is to hear the will of the dragon and uphold a balance in the flow of essence. At the edges are the elementals, the strongest of our clan. In the center is our master, the one best attuned to hear the dragon. In the beginning, the elementals were united within one body. But the power was too overwhelming for a single person. They dispersed into the Ethos. They've re-emerged every generation since then, but as 4 separate beings. The lightning elemental has yet to return. A parentor thought it was him, but his essence was tainted with a lust for power. The flames represent the 4 elementals, and our master. When all these are lit, the dragon will bless us with the final prophecy. And our clan will truly be one with the flow of essence. The missing elementals are somewhere high in the clouds over Mecha Island. Our master's flame still burns, yet she's nowhere to be found. Normally we would be able to sense her. Is she with the others? Again, I recommend talking to everyone twice because I do miss some lines and I think they're relatively important to stuff. You can spend hours meditating and still not hear the Ethos. I was given the one-way ticket myself, so I'm stuck, just like the others here. I guess I almost feel lucky compared to everyone that got caught by the synths. Only those who pass the trial of the force are considered for training. The goal is to reach the Torii Gate without being caught. Since no one had tried in ages, your attempt during the Blood Moon caught everyone off guard. What does that mean? We'll find out later. Beyond this door lies a challenge. Ghosts of the past will test you, and if you pass this test, a new power will emerge. A gift from the eternal memory of our clan. So we got a little bit of a mini-boss that, and again, reminds me of a Metroid fight. This reminds me of the War God from Zero Mission. We gotta attack this gem over and over again, but the more we hit it, the more it'll spawn ninja ghosts that will try to attack you. You wanna be defensive against the ninja ghosts, though, because they're not always vulnerable. When they're falling, or immediately after they attack, is when you want to attack them, because then they'll dissipate. Otherwise, you're probably going to get hit by their counterattack, and that does about 2 damage each, so be careful of that. Once you've taken care of the gem, it's just a matter of taking out the remaining ghosts. Not a hard fight, it's more of a test than anything, like they said. And for beating that, we get our next upgrade. The level 2 katana. Our attack power is now doubled up to 2. And this also allows us, you might remember, to destroy a green door type, like one we saw a moment ago, that there's only maybe 1 or 2 of in the game. This does mean we're going to be doing more damage against bosses, but they do raise the health of bosses on top of that. So this upgrade more so makes just fighting normal enemies easier for a little bit before they start raising the health of those as well. This is one of the few power-ups I like the idea of, but I feel like they could have implemented it a little better. If only just to make the power-up feel more like a combat utility, more so than just a key for that door and a few other things. Now that was technically the main boss for the stage, but we still got a little bit to go in Chapter 4. Like I said, this is where the stage's levels tend to get a little bit on the lengthier side compared to earlier. And this latter part of the stage always has been weird to me. I think it's because my brain counts it similarly to the section where we got the wall cling last time, where it's sort of like Chapter 4.5? The time of our meeting is near. You don't have much further to go. I've been waiting for so long. You alright there, Master? That's kind of a weird dialogue skip there. Huh. Yeah, I'm sure everything is fine. Going back to the soundtrack, though, something I like that you can start hearing, starting I think with the Biohunter boss, last part. This game uses a little bit of the Mega Man X sound font for some of its instruments, namely like the X1, 2, and 3 guitars. And hearing them just makes me smile because of how much I've played those games. Hello again. My chamber is just above, but be careful. I'm not in full control of the facility security system. Also, do not be startled by my appearance. It is still me, just like you remember. Alright. I could recommend getting the E-field here in some regards, but it's not, like, the most necessary. Because this boss fight's not exactly hard. Stop! Stay back. I sense that I'm losing control. The automated security system is taking over. I'm sorry, I must seem unsightly, but it's still me. I just want us to be reunited. The vessel defense system is weird. There's an achievement in this fight for destroying all 6 of these cannons without touching the ground. Once you destroy all 6, the gate itself becomes almost like a Zeb type from Metroid, in that it'll start firing things at you, but you can just mash into its HP and take it out before it actually gets a chance to do its other attacks and recover. It's a really easy fight. I'm regaining control. What a relief. Here, the projection should be more familiar to you. Is that better? See, it's me, the Master. I hope you haven't forgotten. I still need your help. This machine is physically binding me. Can you come closer? Alright, sure. Master! Everyone's worried sick about you, but I just know you'll pull through. All of your physical vital signs are normal, so that's gotta be good, right? We're going to figure out what happened, and then we're going to get you out of here. Your father brought in Hagan. We'll get through this together. Oh, Gio, it's alright. I feel the dragon's call. It seems I've been given a new purpose. Shadow, just as I foresaw, it's time for me to go. I'm getting some readings. Her ego boundary is fluctuating beyond safe parameters, in the same way as the synth. She's close to critical. Her essence may begin to dissipate at any moment. Dr. Projan? Get her to the essence containment unit in my personal lab. Don't just stand there, hurry! I will save my daughter, whatever the cost. And more is revealed. And yes, your first thought about who Geo is completely correct, but they don't really ever state that outright in the game itself. Time for a power-up, though. Their experiments caused an overflow of essence from the ethos. My power was used to contain it, but only barely. Only our captive master can balance the flow. And we get a bit of a weird power up here. This is the parry. You press the D-pad in the direction of a projectile near you, and then it becomes a blue projectile you can then attack to send back at the enemy. It's kind of iffy, but it can do some cool stuff. Let's see what we got to say here. Control tower's offline. The synthetics are stopping in their tracks. The tremors from the explosion were off the scale. I can't get readings from the surface. Containment field's failing. We must get out of here. Hagan personal log. There was a core meltdown. Power is offline. The transfer was only partial. No essence reading. Ego formation unsuccessful. Yet the vessel shows activity. Corrupt essence. If it keeps growing, all is lost. I must rescue our master. She is our last hope, yet she's been gone for so long. That sounds worrisome. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 5, we tackled Chapter 5 itself, which is arguably my least favorite level in the game. See you guys then.